Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Louise.
Well, here we are again. This is hard reading, but we're doing Ann Fessler, The Girls Who Went Away, for those of you on YouTube, including Ann Fessler,
We are on chapter 5,
the
The Family's
family.
Fears. Yeah, hi,
Mm.
Anne.
Yeah, hi, Ann. We found out she's watching us on YouTube, so that's pretty
Yes.
cool. The family fears. Wow. I mean,
This is really all about what the era was like, this
yes.
era of conformity for everybody, right? So post World War II, I did not know these statistics about the
No,
60% of people being able to buy homes. Of course, we're talking mostly white people because
of
of all
course.
the harsh, punishing, horrible laws of
Yeah.
not, that like one so boldly even stated only Caucasian people could buy houses. This was
And
the
let's
era.
say men as well.
And women did not have opportunities either. And because then there was another thing that said that many women of that era were unhappy.
Oh, yeah.
They interviewed
They
married
did.
women from that era and they were unhappy.
Yeah, they were very unhappy. They did an anonymous poll, and it's like all this, you're supposed to be perfect and happy with your families. Well, a lot of women were doing this, but that's not what they wanted in their lives. And
Right.
that leads to so many, I mean, how people were treated. She really gets into this part here right at the beginning.
Well, in the first, yeah, in the very beginning, this woman Deborah is talking, and she said when she got pregnant, it was like slipping back a generation somehow. It was like slipping back in time. The climbing that they had done, her parents,
Hmm.
and their aspirations were suddenly under threat. They were going to be those people that they looked down on.
It was like the worst thing that could happen in that era is like to
Right.
be kind of
To be
not,
this, middle class family,
yes,
homeowning, this was white flight. A lot of people left
yeah,
cities, went to the suburbs. So to
post
have
World War
this
II, like
whole
we're
thing
everything's
happen.
wonderful. And then she
Right.
said, Anne herself said, when I heard the women recount the stories, one of the most shocking aspects of the experience was the way they were treated by their families. It's hard to imagine how the families could have been so harsh. But I think that's why she did this, kind of the research. Why were they so harsh? Because people do love their children, but that love didn't carry over to that shame. You know what I mean?
Right. It was like I said, the era of conformity and
Mm.
nuclear family and all this stuff that I
Yeah,
mean,
and
there
women,
was one woman, she's told her mother
wow.
she was pregnant and her mother started screaming. She was
Yeah,
told to leave the house and not return.
yeah. Not return, and she didn't have anywhere to go. They refused to take her back when like, can
Right.
you imagine like your teenage daughter just out there pregnant? I mean, I can't imagine it in our life. That's why it is shocking. And one mother called her daughter a whore and a
Right.
slut, like
This happened over and over and over
over and
again. There are
over.
so many stories cited about that. This is what this is what I was talking about, and I couldn't find the exact thing, but by the mid 1950s, almost 60% of the population enjoyed a middle class income as compared with 31% in the years before the Great
Mm.
Depression. Housing starts went from 114,000 in 1944 to 1,692,000 in 1950. Whereas only 40% of families had owned their homes at the end of World War II, 60% were homeowners by 1960.
Actually
That
interesting,
is
isn't it?
certainly not our era, that's for
I was
sure.
gonna say it's gone back. I don't even know young people owning homes anymore.
Or
And
if
you,
it even makes sense to, right? It seems like
yeah, it's
with
just all
what things are renting is more economical than buying.
it's
Very sad.
become very hard for families to even have a middle class now. This is the nuclear family, typified by a male breadwinner and a wife who stayed home and devoted herself to the needs of her husband and children, was not held up ideal as the patriotic endeavor. Is like this is you're supposed to be patriotic and American, and we're setting the example for the world. And it said women who did not subscribe to the prevailing domestic model were seen as a threat to the family and to society as a whole.
Hmm.
I mean,
So
we're
then
still a
you
threat,
have,
these women, aren't we?
right, then throw in, young single women getting pregnant and the
Having
shame.
sex. Yep. All
Um,
of it.
Come on in, Woody.
Well,
Y'all, I'm who the people watching on YouTube. I am in my bathroom because they're trimming a tree
enjoying this
outside and Woody came in. So
because he doesn't want to be left out of the bathroom. That's
I'm
what the
I'm on
dogs
my bathroom
enjoy.
floor, friends.
Not on the commode, just to let you know, she is on the floor.
So
Um,
also
yeah.
this one concern that was not raised directly by the African American women
Oh,
Anne
right.
interviewed, but was talked about by white women who gave birth in the 1960s was the fear that adoption agencies would not be able to find a home for their baby and that the child might end up languishing in the foster care system. In fact, race is a factor in the placement of babies for adoption even today. Despite this, of course, was written a while
Right.
ago. Not people now do want
Yes.
now they'll take babies. Despite the high demand for adoptable babies in this country and 140% increase since 1995 in the number of foreign-born children adopted by Americans to meet this demand, some African American babies are sent to foreign countries. Actually, that's not the case anymore. So I
No.
didn't,
It was
but
actually really interesting though. I mean, just learning the history of it. We've learned
back
so
then,
much.
I
Yeah.
know, and back then they did not like it was plus, as we've discussed before,
Things
this
have.
was socioeconomic, right?
Yep.
Um even white women with less means were more likely to keep their babies
Yeah.
in that time, unlike today. And hence also African American, mainly it was mostly affluent or middle class
Yeah.
people whose shame, brought shame to the family, and those were the babies being given up for adoption in those
Yeah.
times.
The families weren't raising them. They weren't keeping them
Hmm.
and raising them like in other cultures. And one more thing to touch upon was the way the TV portrayed life, right? Ozzie and
Right.
Harriet, Leave It to
Leave it to
Beaver,
Beaver.
the Andy Griffith Show. I mean, all these things that were so like you have to have it this way. And look,
Right.
this is what you're programmed, just like we're programmed now with things that come in at us. So, I mean, I can see it. It's just still so shocking to me how bad they were treated. And it makes me sad, the
Right. It
whole
says,
thing.
meanwhile, there were no popular shows at the time that featured single moms, not even widowed moms, even
No,
though in the aftermath of World War II, many more widowed women than men were actually raising kids on their own. The anomaly is a powerful testimony to the social stigma of single
yes.
mother. I mean, even widows. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I'm sorry. You've lost your husband. You're raising your children. Well, let's not feature that. That I understand.
Really?
It's
Um,
really crazy. Well, so next time, I mean, it's just some of the quotes. Everyone should be reading this book if you haven't read it.
Well, here, this was it said this is the
Mm-hmm.
very end of the chapter.
Yep.
For mothers who surrendered in the 50s and 60s, a more tolerant society today often offers little solace. Instead, the change in views underscores the flexible nature of societal attitudes and the degree to which women's lives were governed by the attitudes of their time. So this is the
Um,
final quote,
yeah.
Susan. 3 years later, and my life would have had a different outcome. 3 years later, the first girls in the area were pregnant and staying in school. I mean, think about that.
Um,
1,200 days later, you didn't have to go to an unwed mother's home. You didn't have to give your baby up and you didn't have to hide in shame. 1,200 days later. I was scared for my baby for
mm,
all those years.
yeah. I never
Of
slept through the
course,
night.
we are,
Yeah.
post reading relinquished, and we do know that
Yes.
um, the horrors of this continue to this day, just in a
I'm really glad
wrapped in a
we read
different
them back.
package.
Yeah, and I'm glad we read them back to back because it's like a full circle. And it's the same as us. This whole thing is related. It's like
Hmm.
adoptees and birth mothers. We're in it together. So thank you,
We
Ann
are.
Fessler, for this.
Thank you, Ann Fessler.
We're learning a lot.
And Louise, I'll see you in a minute because we're talking to AJ
Yep. See you in a minute.
in a minute.